welcome to episode 32 of the Bamcast. We've got Tucker back for his part 2. This is the Ultramarathon series. We just finished the race, so we just got off. Everything feels pretty good. We didn't really sweat that much.
Wasn't very hard.
Yeah.
Not many miles.
Yeah. No, we tried to film right after so that we could attach it all in one podcast, and technology just did not cooperate. So it's been five days essentially.
Yeah.
And now we are, for the most I'm most of the part recovered. I don't know about you. We'll kind of get into that in a second. But let's just start from literally where we left off. So we did the podcast. Let's just recap, talk about the day.
Did the podcast. From there, it was about 3:00. Took like an hour nap. Got up. We were basically, you got the truck, all of our gear, everything loaded up. We got to the race around a little after 5, probably 5:15 or 5:20.
Yeah.
Which gave us a little under an hour to get settled and everything before the safety brief, which was at 6:15. One thing about the drive up there, I remember we get about halfway and you go, "Hey man, look at the distance here. All you got to do is just do this drive twice. It's like it's nothing."
Yeah,
it was like a 30-minute drive. Mm-hmm. But anyways, we get there. We kind of scope out like where we want our tent set, which it was kind of weird. I thought that there was going to be a lot more like tents and crews like set up all along the start line, finish line. Mm-hmm. But there really wasn't a whole ton. There was maybe 15, maybe. But it was nice. We got right there at the front, set up our tent, which was honestly so perfect. So get set up. We probably got about 30 minutes or so just to kind of chill. You guys kind of started helping me fill up water bottles, making sure we were prepped for the first couple loops. And then really just kind of sat there, got situated. There was right across from where we were at, there was kind of like a water station. They had anything you could need. They had gels, they had, bananas, they had like their carb drink mix that I use. You name it, they had it. So that was also really awesome because during the race, as we'll get into, if we needed anything that I did not have, you guys walked 20 feet over, grabbed it for me, and we were good to go. But yeah, got there, got settled. I was ready to go from there, and then safety brief, which was at 6:15. And after the owner of BPN, the company, Nick, kind of gave a little introduction, introduced us to the person who owns the ranch. It went into one of their workers, Tony, and the first thing he said was, "All right, guys, this course is fucking hard."
Mm.
And the only thing that we had information-wise was the email that I had sent you, and it was, hey, course is relatively flat. There's a couple hills, basically just be ready for the Austin heat. Like, okay, great. I live in Texas. I'm good for the heat, but look, it should be that bad. They sent a couple pictures of the terrain, but you had no idea what you're getting yourself into. So that was super intimidating. Mm-hmm. We'll never forget him saying that.
Well, and in his speech as well, he starts talking about they saw wild hogs on the property this morning.
Yep.
There are animals all over the ranch. They said there was a bull calf that was like missing.
Yep.
So if we see them, we need to let somebody know. If we saw the bull calf, like it was a lot. They kind of dumped on you guys all at once. And I mean, then they did the national anthem, and then they kind of started the race.
Yep.
And I remember after your first loop, because like Nick ran the first loop with you guys. Mm-hmm. And he kind of was just trucking it with the guy that ended up ultimately winning.
Yep.
But Nick ran the first loop with you guys, and when you finished the first loop, do you remember what the first thing that you came over and said?
Yeah, I came up to you and I said, "What?" I was like, "Dude, you're fucked. Just be ready for whenever you join me because it's fucking hard." Yeah,
you finish your first 5 miles out of 50, and you come to me and say, "Dude, this course is gonna kick your ass." Yeah. I'm like, "Why me? I don't have to run for like 8 hours."
Oh my gosh! The bit, just. I don't know. What did you think whenever I told you that? Because
I'm like double thinking myself. Like I'm like, what is out there? I don't know why he said that specifically. I'm gonna I know it's gonna be a lot of running, obviously, but felt like mentally I was prepared for that. But the fact
Yeah.
that you said, no, the course is going to kick your ass. I was
Yeah.
like, crap.
I think mentally that was me just trying to cope with the fact that I had 45 more miles to
Trying to
go.
pass
It's
it
like,
off on someone
what
else.
can I say? Yeah, because it's like, for one, I've never done an ultra, so coming the whole loop thing was very interesting to me. Somebody that I was talking to earlier this week asked me if they thought that made it easier, that it was that I could break it into those 5 miles and see you guys every time. I think it did, because I even told you whenever we started running. Once I got to the point each loop where I was 3.5 miles in and I had just 1.5 to go, it kind of hit a point where it was a little bit easier of the track, other than just one little hill that last mile. But it was like always the point where I was like, okay, I can make this loop, I'm good. And then as we got on, I got into like a pretty good rhythm of sitting down. You guys helped me out with everything, which was cool. It was cool to experience that like true team aspect of running.
Yeah, which is something you hadn't had before because it's all been solo.
Everything. Every race I've ever done has been solo. I mean, even like I would say this, like obviously majority of it was solo. We'll get into how much I ran. I ran 40 out of the 50 before you joined me, but it was it felt more of a it felt less lonely than my other races because it was broken up and I was able to sit for 5 to 10 minutes depending on how I was doing each lap.
Yeah.
And kind of recoup with you guys and rejuvenate just my spirits.
Yeah.
And how I was doing.
I remember laps 1 and 2 went super smooth. And then lap 3, you whenever you finished, which I was hearing all of the runners say something similar. So lap 3, everyone was kind of coming in and I could hear them start the conversation with their crew and pacers and they were saying like that lap felt great.
Yep. And that's exactly lap 3 was my best lap.
Yeah. I think it was because the temperature had probably dropped the most incrementally in that lap. Like it probably dropped 7 or 8 degrees, maybe.
100%.
Yeah. I think that's why it felt great. Why do you think everyone?
So the race started at 7:00. Laps 1 and 2 were in the heat. I remember like just looking at my watch and just my heart rate was so high those first 2 laps. It was like 170 to like 190.
Yeah.
And like I was running 11-minute, miles, which for me like isn't crazy fast. But was a lot faster than obviously when I got towards the end of the race and stuff. But even with that and heart rate being high, the heat was after the first loop is kind of just jitters and also like figuring out the terrain on that first loop. Yeah. It was just kind of mindless because you're just kind of trying to figure out, okay, where to go, what to look for. But the first 2 being in the daylight helped. I'm glad that I finished the second loop too in the daylight because then it was like, okay, I've got 8 to do in the night, which is more bearable than all 10 if it was all in the night. But yeah, the temperature going down made it easier. And I was already, because I had already done it twice, I was starting to learn the course at that point too. So like basically how the course was set up was, it's just mowed pass and, cleared brush. And so like I would kind of fit, like I tried those first couple laps, like running on the right side on certain paths. And then like the next loop I would run on the left side. I primarily started learning that most sides on the left felt better for me. So when I got to the third, it just kind of started feeling a little more natural. I knew what turns to look for. There were a couple times within the night where I took some turns that I shouldn't have. I might have, not like I veered off like crazy, but, veer off 10, 15 feet before I go, oh crap, I'm in the middle of the shit and had to, find my way back onto the path. So I'd say that made it easier, just kind of learning the path, temperature for sure. And it was still early, so I was still feeling really fueled.
Yeah. And I'll try to put some clips over this so that you guys can kind of see what the actual terrain looked like. But I mean, it was large, loose rocks, like not gravel, like large, loose, like the size of your head rocks that were just sprinkled throughout this trail. It was, I mean, the like couple of hills were pretty steep, just basically washouts.
So I mean, there were three hills. For sure. There was one right before you hit mile 1 where, I mean, the incline is right here. Like you could basically bear crawl it. It might have been easier, but everybody would walk those hills and then it would flatten out. You'd start running again. So that was also kind of nice because it's like, it's almost your excuse to walk,
Built
because
in
if
walk,
you're
yeah.
going to run those, like it's stupid.
Yeah.
You're gonna kill your quads. And then there was another one towards kind of like mile 3 that there was a whole bunch of rocks going down towards this creek, and then it comes back up, and then another steep downhill full of rocks that you had to walk and just be super careful around. Super careful around that creek at night for sure.
Yeah, because the creek itself was
it's very narrow.
It was washed out, and you're walking around this path in between the fence and basically a 6 or 7 foot drop off into like the creek bed. So that was all honestly kind of dangerous too, because by the time I joined, it's pitch black, and I mean it is just a drop off. Like if you didn't have if your headlamp was like shut off in the middle of the night, or was dying and just not very bright, like that could have been super dangerous.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you're running along barbed wire most of the night too.
Yep. Yeah, because everything pretty much, you were either up along a fence line, or it was the mowed path for the most part. And then the third hill was like kind of with like a mile left.
And everybody kind of said on lap 4, and I'm just checking my notes and stuff, on lap 4, everyone kind of said that one was super tough. Like everybody, after saying lap 3 felt so great, which would be 15 miles. Yeah. Everyone came in and said lap 4 was like, that one was brutal. And what do you think it was about lap 4?
I don't even know. Maybe just because I felt so, for one, it was probably the first 2 laps kind of catching up to you. Because I had 2 water bottles the whole time. Every lap I would finish those 2 water bottles, and I would stop also. There was aid stations, there was at least 2, I think 3 that you saw throughout the course. It's a 5-mile course. So, I mean, that's very frequent to have an aid station. Normally in like a marathon, you might see one every 4 or 5 miles. But, I was also stopping, getting a cup of water, getting, a sponge, dripped over my neck just to cool my,
body temperature.
Cool my body temperature down and stuff. But I think because I was going so fast on those first 2 laps, my heart rate was so high. And then the third one, because the temperature went down, it felt easier. It was all of it kind of just hitting me once the distance started getting up, and I was just like, I was starting to feel tired. I mean, it was getting late at that point too. Yeah. So I mean, that's basically it was basically just
10 or 11 p.m. by that point.
It was 11 o'clock. So I mean, that was also another thing. The fatigue just kind of started settling in, I'd say.
Yeah, that makes sense. My theory was kind of that the temperature drop helped on lap 3, and then once it kind of just leveled off, and people realized every lap isn't going to feel that much better. Yeah. So like how much better lap 3 felt versus lap 4 kind of staying the same, it wasn't as much of an improvement. No. So everyone was like, crap, I got to do this for 7 more full lap. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, because lap 4 or at mile 16, my right quad started to cramp. So I started walking for a second. I stretched it maybe like, kind of 1-2 times, just pulling my quad up. And then I just was like, I don't even have time. I'm just going to keep walking. So I just kind of walked it for probably, I don't know, 100, 200 feet or so. And then there's this big field section, which I hated the first 2 laps. Just because it was super tall grass that was mowed, but like all that grass basically had just been flattened. It wasn't like, they have a blower out there and clear the path or anything. You're just walking on all that mowed grass. But after the first 2 laps, I started to enjoy it because it's almost like just cushion for your feet. So I was glad that when I did start cramping, not long after that, I got to that portion, and just ran a lot slower that lap, and was luckily just able to continue running.
Yeah. Because it was cushioned as it compounded.
100%.
It made a lot, less impact, I guess. Still a lot of impact. Okay, so talk about kind of laps. I mean, you've looked at the data now, like what your paces and stuff was. What about laps 5 through 10? Like what stood out to you? What were like memorable points for you when you were out there solo, especially?
Once you hit the halfway point, I remember I took a video after I ran a marathon, or hit like the marathon distance, which that's the longest that I've ever ran. I've never gone over 26.2. And so like I kind of mentally, it was good because I was like, I just have to do that again. And I've done it before. One thing that started to get weird after that halfway point, I was wearing that hydration vest, and I started to notice like a weird pain in my ribs. And I didn't really know what it was for like a lap or two. And then I started realizing every time I would come into you guys and you would fill up my waters and I would go out for the first mile, it was more painful. And it was because those water bottles were hitting up against my ribs. That's just me not wearing that thing ever and not testing the equipment. So that was something that.
Do you think making it tighter would have helped, or what?
I played around with it, and then after I would finish drinking like at least one bottle, it would get better. And then when I would finish both of them, and I knew I was getting to an aid station, I would finish them actually quicker when it would start to hurt, because then I would loosen it and it was better. So it was better when it was loose. I think it was just those water bottles hitting right up my rib cage that whole time.
Just compounded over.
Yeah. So, because I mean, at that point, by the time that I took it off,
tens of thousands of steps.
Yeah. I mean, by the time that I took it off, it had been, I think it was mile 30 that I took it off.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 30 or 35. So that was weird. Mile 30 to 40 was just rough.
Yeah.
There was, I think it was probably, it might have been after lap 4, because it was either lap 4 or lap 5. I started to get pain like in my upper traps.
Yep.
Just from running and just, bouncing and jumping, when you're running that long. My upper back started getting sore. BioFreeze, I had never used it, was literally my savior. Thank you, Sarah, for letting your hands tingle all night. But literally putting that on my quads, because that's what I used after I came in from lap 4 for cramps.
Yeah.
And also around my knees was great. And then using that on the top of my traps, that was like a huge difference.
Yeah.
And then popping like, ibuprofen and stuff like that throughout the night helped also.
Yeah.
Mile 35 to 40 was, during that lap, I was debating like, okay, do I need you or not? Because I think you knew, you had said, hey, if you need me before 35, like, you need to let me know and I can step in if you need it. I knew I was going to make it there no matter what. Before the race even started. Like, that's where my head was. Mentally, I was going to do it. But yeah, 35, when I like looked at you and I was like, no, save it. Like, I can do it. Like, looking back, it was kind of more so like I wanted to prove to myself that I could go, go in more for one. But really just like, you guys had done so much for me. And I mean, you literally picked up running just for this. I was like, it was almost like I owe it to you to know, hey, I can give a little bit more here before we go out and really destroy the last 10 miles.
Yeah.
Which was hard, but then I got to the last mile. I sat down. I even looked at you immediately, and I was like, you can probably tell how relieved I am about to have somebody to run with. So that was cool.
I remember the mile. I think it was, or lab, I think 7. It was you. That was probably the most aggravated that you came in. It was like you kind of came in, and it was almost like you were a little mad at yourself for even doing this thing, and you were kind of just like, you were angry that you were going to have to do another one. Angry with yourself, I think, that you had come to that conclusion. What it kind of seemed like is like, why am I putting myself through this? I've got to do another freaking 5 miles. I'm in pain, like all these things. And I had kind of, so to give you guys some what me and Sarah were doing essentially was every time that Tucker would come in, we would give him 2 water bottles that we had filled up. One of them with kind of a carb drink, one of them with an electrolyte mix. And we would fill that up and we would put it in his vest, and then we would take the 2 out that were in his vest and I would start to fill them up while Sarah is basically rubbing, the BioFreeze like everywhere that he's in pain. He would take like a Tylenol or ibuprofen if he needed it. He'd eat like any type of solid, like an avocado or a banana or something if he needed it. Take a salt capsule if he felt like he needed extra electrolytes. And just take a bite of watermelon or fruits or like anything that really he just felt like he needed at that point. It was kind of just going off the feel. And so that's what we were doing essentially started out as like because you're doing 11-minute miles, it was like every 55 minutes ish. And then it kind of like went up as you got a little bit more fatigue throughout the night. You kind of felt out that 13-ish minute miles. And so in between that, we were just preparing for the next lap, essentially. And, I'm playing kind of like mental math and mental gymnastics, trying to figure out how much I should be carving up. I'm sipping on electrolytes the whole time because I don't know if he's going to come in one lap, and I'm trying to like stay loose as well because I don't know if he's going to come in one lap and be like, dude, I just come with me right now. Like, I just need help. Like, I need someone. So I'm trying to like stay prepared the whole time, stay carved up. And then you tell me around mile 30 that you're going to go to 40. So I make sure I get ready for 35 in case you need me. And then 40, like I get like actually warmed up and, geared up and everything. So it was a lot of like a waiting game, but it was also, it didn't feel, we both talked about how it didn't feel like, 7 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. It didn't feel like that because it wasn't that much actual time. Like later on, it became like an hour and a half ish in between when we'd see you. So we'd have a little bit more time. And I edited that podcast that you guys saw last week. I edited it while we were outside just by hooking up to my hotspot. I even did some work and stuff too, and like made some social posts. But it was mostly a waiting game and kind of just making sure that we were prepped for the next time. But because of that, time was going by relatively fast. And then by the time that I started running, it was I think I took an Instagram story right when you were coming in at like 4:30 a.m. Saying that like I'm about to take off, we're about to go, and that was right at around like the 10-hour mark, essentially.
Yep. Yeah. It was 10 hours. Now, okay, for you, how was it hard at 4:30? Like to do that? Like, do you think it would have been better if it was earlier in the night?
I don't know, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I carved up and did a huge breakfast with you, which I was debating on if I should do that because it's like I wasn't going to be essentially eating or needing those carbs for 20 hours almost. So I didn't know if I should. That's why I kept asking you kind of questions whenever I could, was like, how should I lead up to my actual time that I think I'm going to be running? So I just tried to time it out best I could. And I told you, it's running in my very limited experience so far seems like mostly mental, and I can do the mental stuff. Like I can lock in and go Goggins mode, which Kenzie actually texted me because she woke up at 4:30 when I was about to go.
Yeah.
Because I just sent her like a text like, hey, I'm about to run, love you. I'll keep you updated. And she said Goggins it or something like that. And I was like, okay.
That's a big fan. That's all right.
But that was the kind of the thing that was tougher, is just figuring out when am I going to do it? I'm trying to calculate what I need to be doing for it. And just mentally, like I'm sure Sarah thought I just didn't want to talk to her the last couple of hours because I did have to kind of like lock in and just make sure that I couldn't go into it like buddy, or I was going to, not make it all the way to the end. But yeah, so 4:30 we started running, and you were in great spirits during that first lap.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, I'll say too, just hearing all that, like that's why I respect you so much when you do take on challenges like this, whether it's with me or somebody else. Cause it's like, there really was no pressure for you. Like yes, there was, but like I told you, like when I told you that there wasn't any expectation or anything like that, there was not. If we got 2 miles in and you hurt yourself or needed to walk, I was going to walk with you. Like that's just,
I would have ran on that.
I know you would have, but you know what I'm saying though. But yeah, just hearing that, like, that's just, I do it's awesome that you were kind of like trying to take it so seriously. Cause like I knew where I was and like I wanted to finish strong or at least try to. So it was cool that, we did that for sure. Cause when we started mile 40, we were booking it off the bat. Like
we probably passed 30 people.
Yeah. I'd have to look at my stats and stuff, but we went back to over the entire race. My pace was like it was like a 14:05 or something like that for the entire race. That's with stops and everything. Because it took me it was 11 hours 43 minutes, just over that. But we were hitting like 11 to 12 minute pace. So, which I think you said felt pretty easy because it was easier than you were running and it wasn't as hot as whenever you're running here in Dallas. So that's good. How did you feel about the trails when you got on?
It was tough. To me, running, like I don't like running I've only ran, 7 or 8 sessions at this point, maybe 12 sessions at this point. But to me, running where there's actual change in scenery is so much easier than running just on a treadmill, because on a treadmill, the only thing you have to look at, if you're not like watching something, the only thing you have to look at is the number slowly creeping up. Whereas on, the trail, it's like I'm seeing something, especially the first lap. It felt like that first lap flew by.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing all new stuff, trying not to fall because it's pitch black.
Yeah.
So the first lap, it didn't feel like super hard at all. And I think we were like around 11:30. If I remember correctly on that lap.
It was quick.
And then we started the last lap, and you forgot a couple of things. You forgot that part of the medal.
Yeah.
And then you forgot something else. A pill. Electrolyte pill. So I ran back to go get that twice because you forgot.
As I start walking.
Yeah. So then I kind of filmed another video like running back to you. And then the last lap was where I really got to see you kind of like struggling and kind of on the verge. I could tell you were really in pain. And we talked through the entire second to last lap.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking the whole time. We were having deep conversations. We're talking about everything.
Yeah.
And the last lap, you didn't talk like at all. And there were several times where it was kind of, I'm trying to do everything I can think of to just help.
Yeah.
I'm talking you through it, telling it's just me and you.
Mm-hmm.
We can do this. I said a couple prayers.
Yeah.
Like we were just trying to encourage you. I was doing heart rate checks every.
You kept asking me, what's your heart rate at? What's your heart rate?
Because I wanted to keep you in a healthy zone, because there's no telling what the body's going to do at that point.
It was with 3 miles left when we hit mile 47. That's when I remember you took that video. I was like, 3 miles left, baby. Like, we got it. But that's when the hurt, like, it hit. Like, because we still ran those first 2 miles pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remembered, like, I was just slowly peeling back, and I wasn't even trying to. Mm-hmm. There, like, through that long field section, I think you got in front of me like 30 feet at one point. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm trying. Like, I was not going to walk. I did not walk that entire last lap other than the hills. But yeah, that was when I was like, it was testing me big time. So, but then I think we hit, it was 2 miles left, or maybe it was a mile and a half. And you asked what my heart rate was at. My heart rate was up higher than what it had been, probably like 175 or 180. And I look at you and I was like, yeah, it's 180. Fuck walking. I was like, we finished it. We ran the whole thing.
We did. We didn't stop at all, except for walk that one crazy hill.
Yeah.
But that's 10 steps.
Yep.
Talk about just your internal dialogue especially as you're out there by yourself.
Well, I mean, so the first, I think 9 hours or so, I was playing music throughout, just trying to like kind of stay amped up. But it was, it almost like, especially when it got dark in the night, it felt like everything kind of just like went numb, and just like you're so lonely. Even like with music or a podcast, whatever I was listening to, it was just lonely. Like there was probably a handful of times where I would link up with another runner and run maybe, half mile or a mile or so with them, which was super cool to meet some people out there and stuff. But I just remember, for one, it was crazy when people would pass me, especially once I was about halfway in, because I'm like, oh my gosh, there were like the dude who finished in 6 hours and like 35 minutes, which is almost cutting my time in half. I can't even fathom that. So like that, like when that would happen, it would almost be like if I doing something wrong, can I do this?
That would be like a mind. I mean, it's
totally screwed with your mind.
His crew stuff was crazy to me, because how they would work it is his pacer and crew members would meet him like the last probably half mile before the finish line, and they would have the stuff in their hands for him, and they would run with him, handing it to him, taking whatever he didn't want, giving him, running and yelling and getting other people to give him stuff that he did need. Like it was, and he would maybe run by the aid station and grab like a Go bar on the run, peel it, throw the trash down, and like just, I mean, he did not stop running.
Yeah.
Like it was 7:30 minute, 7:30 pace the entire for 50
insane.
miles.
It's insane. That level of fitness is wild.
Yeah. I can't even fathom it.
Yeah. And then also too, whenever like I would pass people who were walking or hurting or, you know, anything, instantly the thought was, especially once you got later into the night, probably after about mile 20, when I had a really hard lap, was, well, shit, I can just walk. Like, you know, there's so many other people walking. Like, what, you know, why can't I do that? And, you know, the longest that I probably walked like consecutively was maybe a quarter of a mile, maybe. I mean, it might have been, you know, I started running again for maybe 0.1 miles or a quarter mile and then walk again. Like when I was having really tough laps and tough points, if I was like cramping or anything like that. But it was, I didn't let myself give up. Like I did keep having the constant thought of like, I don't want to look back on this knowing, for one, I don't know if I'm ever going to do this again type thing. But two, just having being like, if it is, like, I want to look back and know that I gave it everything.
Yeah.
Like I'm just not the person that wants to leave anything on the table.
Yeah. And one thing I did want to say that I think is different about you and me is I realized early on in the night when we were passing people, because that's all we did the last 10 miles was we just passed.
Yeah.
But we didn't get passed by anybody. But when we did pass people, I would hear you say like, hey, I can encourage them. And that was kind of contagious to me, because when I'm in that, whenever I get into that kind of like mindset and like the way I work myself up, I feel like I get a lot more competitive. And I work myself into, I mean, I'll create false narratives in my head of like, they don't believe you can do it. Like, you know, F these guys as you pass them. Like that's the type of things that, and it's messed up. I know, like it's not good, but that's the type of thing that will help me to fuel myself to be like, none of these people believe in you. Like you're doing something that they can't even fathom, and they don't even think you can do it either. Like that's the stuff I'm telling myself the whole time to keep me going. And you, the whole time we're saying stuff to other people of like, you guys got this, keep going, you got it, like keep going. Like you were, every time we passed somebody, you would say something like that. So I started doing that with you. But that was just kind of like your default. And so what about going to that place for you makes you stay encouraging and stuff? And like, where do you find fuel in that mentality?
I think for one, I mean, the 2 marathons that I have done, I mean, I've been around races. I haven't ever done the ultra. But like the running, like community, I don't have a whole lot of friends who run. Like, I mean, like you pace me and you don't even run. Like Sarah was my crew member. She runs. She's got to be running a couple races. She's doing a marathon stuff next year. But even then, like, it's not like, you know, either of you guys are doing marathons monthly or, you know, crazy ultras and stuff. But everybody at these, that's the cool thing about running and the sport of running is that everybody is so encouraging and always so positive. No matter if it's a 5K or no matter if it's like an ultra like this. And I think being around people like that, it's just, you don't want to be the Debbie Downer to bring somebody down. You want to be the person who can, you know, because I've been the person walking. There were so many times through 40 miles where people would pass me, and same thing. Every time somebody passed me, hey, you doing all right, man? Or, hey, you know, you got this. Keep, you know, you're doing great. Whether if it was a runner or whether if it was you were running by people at the aid stations who, you know, were helping you, like it was just, it just helped keep your spirits high. And I know that it helps me when I'm there. So why can't I be the person to help another person? Now, when it does come to your thoughts of like, you know, you go to that competitive space and, you know, screw these people, they don't believe me. I feel like I get more to that whenever I'm not in a race setting. And, you know, I'll tell people that I'm, you know, hey, I just did a 10-mile workout, or I'm going to go do this and that. And they're like, dude, like, you're crazy. Like, what? Like, what did you just say that you're going to do? That is more so when I'm like, these people just don't get it. And I'm not even going to give them the time of day to explain it, because, you know, they're not going to give it any thought of, oh, that actually could better myself if I tried that or tried something different. Like, I think I called you a couple days after the race. I was telling somebody who I worked with, what I did and whatnot, and he just said like, man, well, your knees or whatever, man, you're gonna have to be careful.
We'll be doing that forever.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to walk. I'm like, dude, shut up. I don't give a shit. Like I'm doing something for me to better myself, and I'm not. Yeah, you might be right a little bit in a sense, but I don't want to hear that. Like, I'm not also looking for all this crazy. I don't do this for praise or anything like that. That's also another thing that like I've kind of thought about. I've thought about just purpose a lot recently, and the fact that I feel like I don't do these things for a certain reason, for a certain purpose to get recognition or anything. It's really just to find purpose within myself, be happy with myself.
Okay.
So,
yeah. I think it's beautiful that your mindset goes there, especially in a race setting. But I mean, there will always be people like that. I get comments like that all the time about how hard or long I like work on business stuff. I mean, you saw me, especially when I was in like hyper grind mode, how long like the hours I was putting in and how crazy things would get. But it's the same. I mean, I got a lot of the same comments when I told people I was thinking about this. Like, dude, you're not a runner. Like, what are you doing? What are you trying to prove? Why you can't run 10 miles? You can't even run like, the first couple of runs that I'm doing and I'm like struggling and stuff. Like, you can't do this. But deep down, I know where I go mentally and what I'm capable of. And it's like, there wasn't ever a doubt in my mind that I was going to push and like figure it out, whether it was
you're going to finish whatever miles, you needed to finish.
Yeah.
And that's how it was.
Yeah. But I think that's just people's default a lot of times. I think it's just, that's the narrative they're telling themselves and why they're not doing a lot of these things is, well, I want to stay active for, I want to be able to walk later in life. It's like, well, you're not going to be able to walk later in life because you're not going to have the muscle or the cardiovascular health to be able to do it. You're going to do it. You're not going to be able to because of lack of activity, not because you were too active.
Yeah, or you don't know what a macro is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, it's different strokes for different folks. It's tough to, we talked about it all last time, like breaking out of the matrix and stuff. A lot of times I've seen people that have had that same mentality, do stuff that's crazy and challenging and all of a sudden like flip the switch and now they get it, now they're there. But I was going to talk about this feeling, like last thing about kind of like race day, I guess. So one thing, I mean, even for me, even though I told you that I feel so conflicted about the big day because it's like any other day I could have been like, yeah, I ran 10 miles of trails last night, overnight, didn't sleep. And people would be like, holy shit, dude, like that's crazy. That's awesome. But saying that I did 10 miles to help you do 50 miles doesn't carry near as much weight. But even me doing my 10 miles, especially having only ever run 6 miles before that, like towards the end, it was, everything's hurting, like the impact on my legs after not even being close to ever running that far was starting to compound and everything. But I am obsessed with that feeling that you get whenever you are on the edge of something that you may or may not be capable of. I love that feeling. And, I equate it to like a bodybuilding prep. Whenever I was on my bodybuilding prep, every cardio session felt that way after the first 12 weeks of crashing. Like every cardio session felt that way. Every workout felt that way. And it was just, you're sitting down in between sets, not because you just want to chill for a second, because you can't stand, like it's like a slow kill yourself slowly type of thing. But I just love that feeling. And then recognizing that, hey, I'm here, I'm in the middle of this feeling right now. And then also recognizing I'm not going to stop. Like I'm going to keep going. And I think that's where you lived a lot of those last 10 miles. What do you enjoy that feeling? Do you like talk about your experience with that?
Yeah. At every race going into it, there's people telling you that you can't do it, or that, or just not being able to understand why you even do it. So, I think that's that initially motivates me just to even jump in and do it to with an intent to, hey, I'm gonna kick this race's ass, or at least the best that I can. But yeah, I mean, like every loop, that the first mile to every loop was like, it was that feeling for me. It's like I'm sitting down, I'm eating what I could eat. You guys are helping me put on whatever I need to put on, and then it's like, all right, welcome to the effing show. I gotta come back. And that first mile is that
happy
high.
birthday.
Yeah, that first mile is that high of, I can do it. I'm gonna do this again. Like not I have to do this again. It's I'm gonna do this again. So I mean, I don't feel like there's anything crazy that I feel, but it is just like kind of that split second, like, like I can do this. Like I'm about to prove to myself that I can go out there and do this again. And the cool thing too is that you knew there was 10 laps. After the first lap, you know how hard it is, and you're proving to yourself every single lap. Like it's like I talked about last week, was just like the little steps. Like it felt like every lap was a little step. Yep. It was a step of me getting to, in my mind, like fine tune and find, to dig deep of why I can go more, and just, find that internal motivation, that you're doing something that people aren't even ever going to try.
Yeah. Yep. And then, so basically we finished the last of those 10 laps. I had the presence of mind somehow at the end to put my phone in cinematic mode, and so that it wouldn't be like bouncy video, which if you guys watch the YouTube video that may or may not be up by the time this comes out, most of the video I couldn't figure out cinematic mode. So it was like, you just see the camera kind of jumping as I'm jogging.
Notice that.
But in cinematic mode, you can put it in action mode. And in action mode, it basically makes your phone like a gimbal, like it'll stabilize the video for you. And so the entire last half mile, I videoed you like running in, and I actually got a lot of people like Kenzie's family and Kenzie and my parents and everybody that listened to it. You hear yourself like struggling and kind of grunting and kind of making like these noises, like you're really hurting and stuff. And then they pointed out, which I thought was super cool when I watched it back, they pointed out that, you see you ahead of me, and then you see me catch up, and I'm like right there with you. And then you hear you grunt again, and it's kind of like a painful grunt. And I say, come on, Tuck, you got this. And then you just take off and you finish. It was kind of a cool little moment watching it back. Nice. But you brought that coin, and then that got set into the medal. So you got this dope medal. You got a crazy cool shirt as well, which you wore.
That's really just why I did it, just for the shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about like after the fact. Okay. So you finish, you hug Nick Bear, your chafe stick falls out. Your chafe stick and something else. It's been
in all types of places.
Yep, I had to help you rub it in between some areas.
No, he did not.
I offered to.
Yeah.
But you finish the race, you hug Nick Bear, you sit down. Talk about after that.
Surreal. It's like I did it. Like it was. I took a video right before you started taking yours, or maybe it was in the middle. I don't remember, but of that, because basically, so the whole 5 mile loop is all through the ranch, and then there's the entrance kind of gravel road is the last stretch of like going towards the finish line, which is maybe 200 yards, 300 yards or so. And I just took a video, and like, this happened to me also in the first marathon, where like just all the emotions just hit me. And it is that feeling of like, holy shit, like I've been out here for, I mean, it would have been 11 hours and like 40 minutes, and I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's just, yeah, like, I mean, I almost like start crying running. It's like, this just, I can't believe that 2 months ago, I got this stupid email that I was going to run 50 miles, And I posted on my story, and a couple people swipe up and are like, dude, you are crazy. Everybody's telling me I'm crazy. My parents don't understand why I'm doing it, but they get it a little bit because they've been at the marathons at least and are super supportive. But even then, my dad's like, dude, like, what in the world? So it's just all, it kind of just all comes full circle like that. I put something out there, and I took it on, took it head on, and accomplished it. And then, sit down. I mean, my legs are dead at that point. It's just joy. I mean, it was so cool to finish that race with you because I had never finished a race with anybody. Like I ran a 15 or I ran a 5K, like beginning of last year. But I just ran at my own pace faster than the people that I ran it with. So I still just finished just me. And then I ran a 15K with Case and my old roommate. We finished, a little bit of time apart, but I mean, me and you, it was finish line, which was it just meant a lot. So it was cool to come in, sit down, and just be able to be thankful and grateful for you and Sarah, everything that you guys have done. And then also just to witness more people coming in and just like knowing that they're feeling that feeling too. I think that was cool just to know that there's few people in the world that were feeling that. And I hope that everybody can feel what I felt crossing that finish line at some point in life. I know a lot of people say that just with different big accomplishments that they experience, but I think that was one of those for me where like, I know that this is a feeling that I'm not going to feel many more times in life. And it's super cool. So,
yeah. So finished up, we got you some pancakes and
so good.
Yeah. Some pancakes.
The best freaking pancake I've ever eaten in my life.
There was a food truck there that was serving burgers and hot dogs most of the night. And then after midnight, it was street tacos, and they closed up from like probably 2 to 4 a.m. And then they were serving breakfast the next morning. It was awesome.
Yeah. The one crazy thing that I haven't talked about food wise. So I'd never eaten solid food during a race. I don't know what it was about avocados. I would take a bite of an avocado, and I mean, I wanted to tear it up live, man. Like it was so good. Avocado and just salt, and then watermelon was amazing during the race. I don't know why, but gosh, it was so good.
Yeah, you kept talking about that. You really enjoyed your avocados.
So good, dude.
You really enjoyed your avocados. But yeah, we finished up. We basically, we went. I got a nice video of you taking off your socks and stuff.
Oh my gosh, those shoes are wrecked.
Yeah,
that was crazy. I ran in just normal daily trainer shoes. A lot of people were in trail shoes and everything. I was happy I ran in what I ran in because they were comfy. Worked out. But yeah, my shoes that were white turned black.
Yeah, mine are still black. I need to wash wet. And then we basically, we started driving home. I can maybe even throw up a clip of it made me think of, and this is why I took the video. So Sarah fell asleep like 20 times when we're trying to talk to her in the back seat. But I drove your truck home, and we basically, 10 minutes into the drive or something, like you're out as well, and not to like throw you under the bus or anything, but he's falling asleep like this, just like sitting straight up. And I've pretty much only seen Tucker do that. And I've only seen Tucker do that whenever he's had way too much to drink.
Oh yeah.
Many, many times. I have a ton of videos of you after a night out where you're asleep like that in like an Uber or something, or if I'm like the DD. And to see you in that exact same position, sleeping the exact same way while I'm driving you home from just having run 50 miles, I was like, this is poetic.
Yeah.
I got to get this video.
Yeah.
So it's like that video.
Yeah, it literally looks exactly like the video of Tyler driving me to work whenever I was so hungover to where I couldn't drive, and he put my clothes on that one morning about 5 years ago. So yeah, it is full circle.
Yeah, it's insane. It is insane. But then we got back to the Airbnb. We all kind of cleaned up, and then we were dead to the world for 6 hours essentially.
Yep. And went and got dinner.
Celebrated your birthday.
Yep.
Which is another crazy aspect of that.
Yep. I'm glad you guys remembered after, I ran it was the fifth lap.
Yeah.
It's a fifth lap. And I leave. I stop off in a porta potty to go to the bathroom, and then all I hear in the porta potty as I'm finishing up is Tucker, Tucker, and it's
You're like, what?
you and Sarah. Like, happy birthday! I'm like, man, goodness, I didn't forget. I was gonna give him some shit on his lap.
Yeah, we were after you left. I'm looking at my phone, and I'm like, I'm like, God, and I say something like, it's already freaking like 12:20, and then I was like, shit, it's Tucker's birthday, and we didn't even tell him happy birthday. And Sarah's like, oh my God, we are such bad people. And I was like, should we try to go catch him? And she was like, yeah. So we take off running to go try to catch you. So I'm like, if he stops to the bathroom, we can for sure catch him. So I just start yelling into the porta potties as we walk by him, and eventually we hear, yeah, what?
Yep.
That was you.
Yep. Also, no stomach issues before, during, or after the race. Crazy.
Yeah, that is insane.
Because I've had bad stomach problems after both marathons. So that was nice.
Yeah. Good for Sarah.
Yeah. Good for me.
Yeah,
better for me.
Okay, and then talk about kind of after that, because you were walking around like an old man for sure after we slept for a few hours, because we got back at like 9 a.m. guys. So we finished up the race at like just before 7. We sat there and kind of like got everything situated and packed up and everything for a while. We took our time with like you getting kind of some of the stuff that was uncomfortable for you off. And then we drove back for 40 minutes to the Airbnb. So by the time we get back, it's like 8 to 8:15 a.m. and everybody's got a shower and clean up. I know you had to take a bath because you couldn't stand in the shower. And then we went to bed for 6 or 7 hours and woke up at like 3. So talk about the pain, like everything since then.
So both marathons, the other 2 races I did. First one, I was totally fine. Pretty much everything throughout, except a couple days after I started having pain in the back of my right knee.
Yep.
The marathon that I ran 2 weeks before I just did this ultra, I had strained my calf, and then it caused me to run different on my left foot. I had pretty bad issues with my left foot after that race. So I was super nervous about my left foot during the race, thinking that because basically it's plantar fasciitis, thinking that it was going to flare up during the race. I had like compression sleeve that I thought I might have to throw on if there was an emergency, but didn't have to. I think it was because of the paces and stuff that I was going, but I had no issues with any of my muscles. My muscles feel totally fine now. After the fact, like it was really just general soreness. My calves were sore. My quads were really sore. Hamstrings a little bit sore. And my groin was really sore too. But ankles and knees were the biggest thing. It was like, I can't imagine doing that on pavement. Just the beat down that your knees would take. I think that also is maybe why I've had more injuries in marathons, because it's just straight to beat the pavement for 4+ hours. But my ankles were swollen, and then my knees, like I'm still dealing. Like I ran today actually for the first time since the race, 5 days after, just ran a 1.5 miles, and probably after a half mile, like my left knee was giving me like a good amount of pain, like not like completely sharp pain, but like it's painful on the outside of my knee. Still feeling some pain on like the inside of my right knee, but I think it's really just general soreness, which is so nuts. Like my biceps were sore the day of and day after, just from like pumping my arms so much. My traps were really sore for like probably like 3 days, 4 days. But recovery, I'm honestly like feeling really good. My feet are totally fine. I'm completely shocked by that, because that's what I've dealt with for ever since I even started training. Before I ran the first marathon, that's what I hurt, was one of my feet. So yeah, I feel my body feels really good. I told Sarah yesterday, I was like, I feel good. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
So good.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is.
Really good problem to have. What's next for you, rest of the year, or just races you have slated?
So I'm running a half marathon next month. It's a month out from that in Napa, California, with our buddy Marcus.
Yep.
Probably just gonna take it more as like a fun run. Enjoy it with him. Unless I get halfway through and I just want to go, because that's usually where my head goes. So as of right now, though, I'm kind of wanting to go and enjoy that. Then I'm running a half marathon in August with Sarah, which is like around White Rock Lake. So me and her are going to run that together, which will be fun. And then potentially the Dallas half or marathon in December, kind of up in the air, thinking about getting a group together for that. And then Sarah's running a marathon in January, California, and I'm going to join her and pace her doing that. So got a good amount going. So I'm kind of just looking forward to running at my own pace. I don't really want to follow like a plan or anything right now.
Yeah.
I want to start being consistent on my own to where I can go out and I can run at least, 4 or 5 days a week and set, hey, all right, I'm going to go on a 4-mile run 5 days a week, and just kind of really start building that base. Cause, I think that's what's really going to start, to help like my longevity in the sport. If I do continue to stick with it, is just getting miles in, getting comfortable with doing it super consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So
exciting, man.
It was.
Proud of you.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
It was super fun.
Yeah, it was. It was an awesome experience. Really, I think I'm so happy that I was able to be there and able to do it and document the whole thing. I think the YouTube video, whenever I finally finish editing it, it's going to be super cool. Yeah. So if you are watching this on YouTube or listening to this on audio, make sure that you check out that video. I'll try to have it done, posted before this one comes out.
I remember too, there was a point during the race, because I knew that you were vlogging it, and you kept setting your camera up like on your backpack or something. And I remember it was the lap that I came in where my traps were killing me. It was the very first one. It was probably like the lap that I was in the most pain, or one of the most pain. And I remember taking my shirt off and just like feeling it so bad. And right as I took it off, I remember seeing the camera thinking, I cannot imagine what the hell it's going to look like whenever you get that. So that's awesome.
Yeah. It'll be fun to look at and look back on. Because, I wanted to be able to actually hands-on help you. Yeah. And not just be holding the camera. So on several laps, I would try to set it up somewhere where you could just, and then set the mic somewhere where it would just capture what was happening without being disruptive. But yeah, it was an awesome experience. I feel super blessed to have been able to be a part of it with you. So I appreciate the invite.
Sure.
You told me to ask you it again to see what you would say. So what are you going to accomplish by any means necessary now that you've already accomplished your first one?
Yeah. Gosh. I think by any means that's necessary. I feel like a broken record because I've talked so much about purpose. But I feel like I will start to find my purpose or like within this fitness stuff, to really encourage others. My goal every day is to, like by any means necessary, I will be a positive person. I will work to encourage others, because I know how much positivity has shaped my life, and I just want to do that for other people. So I would say just being a positive person who can encourage others to do hard things. I want to be somebody who can challenge others, or at least put things out there that gives people the thought that, hey, I can better myself in the end of the day. I'm not stuck in this just circle of life. Why not go out there and take a risk?
Yeah.
So I want to be the person that can actually prove that I can take risks, and be comfortable in it, and not be stuck in being somebody that I don't want to be.
Yep. Love it. No doubt you'll do it, man. If you're whether you are or aren't watching this on YouTube, make sure you leave it in the comments that we want to see more Tucker on social media so that he can share more of his journey and be more positive for more people. So that's the only way that you're going to be able to spread it on a mass scale. Post on social media. I get on them all the time. Get on to Kinsey all the time too. But no, dude, I appreciate coming on for the cycle and taking time out of your week. Yeah, guys, if you make sure that if you're on any type of audio platform, you subscribe, so you don't miss upcoming episodes. We've got some cool episodes coming up. Appreciate you guys all listening to this one and listening to I don't know, maybe at this point, I can't even see the time frame, but maybe 2 hours plus of me and Tucker between this one and the previous episode. And if you're on YouTube, make sure that you like this one, comment that you want to see some more Tucker, and make sure you subscribe as well to make sure you don't miss any upcoming things. But appreciate you guys all listening or watching, and appreciate you being here, dude.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep. Hopefully I'll be on soon.
See what without you. Yeah.
See what the next crazy thing is.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right, bud.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.